We find ourselves in the year 214 before Christ, at the northernmost edge of the vast Qin Empire. The air is dry and light, laden with dust the wind drags from the hills of the Gobi Desert. The sun tilts slowly toward the horizon, and its last flashes stain the stone mountains red and gold. At our feet stretches a newly raised wall, immense, solid, snaking like an earth dragon waking as night falls. The Great Wall of China, though in this era they do not yet call it that, rises like a line of fire and shadow between the civilized realms of the south and the untamed plains of the north. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, has ordered the old walls of the conquered states joined into one endless defense. And here we are, on one of its first finished stretches, just as the day takes its leave and night begins its reign. Before we go on, I'm very curious to know from where in the world and at what hour you're joining tonight. I'd love to read you in the comments. This is a shared journey, a path through history and memory, and each of us gazes on this same wall from a different corner of time. Twilight dissolves slowly over the watchtowers. In the distance, the mountains seem to float in the purple haze, and a group of laborers gathers the day's last tools: hammers, wicker baskets, frayed ropes. Some sit upon the walls and silently watch the sky change color. At that hour the work halts, and the sound of hammer blows gives way to the murmur of the wind. The air brings with it a smell of damp earth, of fresh stone and smoke from the kitchens of nearby camps. In the valleys, shadows begin to move. They are soldiers, peasants, men and women who have spent the day hauling stones, dragging logs, mixing clay and sand to raise the defense that will keep the invisible enemy of the north at bay. The wall towers, imposing yet still imperfect. Its rough edges show human effort, the trace of calloused hands and bare feet. From where we stand, we can see the line of stone stretch hill after hill, losing itself in the distance where the mountains dissolve on the horizon. It is hard to imagine its full extent, but Imperial engineers assure that, someday, it will run for thousands of kilometers, linking towers, passes, and fortresses under a single purpose: to protect the Qin Empire. The sun finishes hiding, and in its place the first star emerges. Torches flare one by one along the parapets, casting tremulous lights upon the newly built walls. In the towers, sentries begin their night shift. The sound of their steps rings on the stone slabs. Some speak in low voices, others tighten their bows and check their arrows. The air cools quickly, and a steady wind blows from the north, whistling through the wall's cracks as if the desert itself were breathing. Imagine for a moment that you are there, standing beside them, leaning on the rough railing, looking into the dark. On one side, the lands of the empire, with villages and fields sleeping under the moon. On the other, a sea of silence and mystery. On that border, the night is a bridge between two worlds. No one knows what lies beyond the horizon, but all feel that something moves, something the walls seek to stop. As darkness spreads, the landscape changes its soul. The wall that by day looked a monument to power becomes a living being. Its surface drinks the glow of the torches. Its towers seem like burning eyes watching the void. Sounds are heard that cannot always be named. The howling wind, the rustle of animals, perhaps the echoes of those who labored here and are gone. The night is deep, almost tangible, and every shadow seems to hide a story. In the nearby camp, fires begin to burn. The laborers cook rice in small iron cauldrons, and the aroma of steam mingles with the smoke of the embers. Some tell jokes, others sing songs from their far-off villages, trying to chase off the weariness. They have come from every corner of the empire, from the fertile valleys of Sichuan to the deserts of the west. Every stone set into this wall bears the weight of their hands and the hope of returning home someday. But many know that will never happen. The first emperor has not only ordered a wall built, he has ordered a frontier raised between chaos and order, between darkness and light. In his mind, the wall is not merely a military defense, but a sacred line marking the limits of the civilized world. Beyond it, all is unknown, wild, dangerous. The enemies of the north, the nomadic Xiongnu tribes, are, to the Chinese of this time, a constant echo in dreams. No one knows when they will appear, but all fear the day their horses cross the hills. The night keeps advancing, and the sky fills with stars. The Chinese constellations guide the soldiers, the azure dragon of the east, the white tiger of the west, the black warrior of the north. Each has its place in the firmament, mirroring in the sky the empire's order on earth. Far off, the sound of a horn booms among the mountains, a sign that the towers have begun their communication. It is an ancient language, made of fire, smoke, and echo. The towers warn one another, not because there is danger tonight, but because the habit must be kept alive. Each signal reminds the men that, even in darkness, the empire remains awake. Around us, the temperature drops. The air turns crystalline, and every sound seems amplified. The crack of a torch, the murmur of the wind, the firm step of a guard upon stone. One of them stops and watches the horizon. There are no lights, no movement, only an immense silence that seems endless. So eternity must sound, he thinks, and perhaps he is right. For this wall, built with such sacrifice, is destined to withstand centuries of wars, dynasties, and oblivion. In the end, the wall belongs to no single man and no single time. It belongs to all who raised it, defended it, or simply beheld it. Its stone is steeped in stories of love, of fear, of loyalty, of hope. And every night like this, while the world sleeps, the wall stays awake, remembering those who dreamed it. The tower's fire flickers as if it breathed. Shadows stretch, and the sky is no longer blue nor black, but a blend of both. It is the moment when time seems to stop. Future generations will remember this instant as the birth of a symbol, though none of the men here could imagine it. What for them is one more night on watch is, for us, the beginning of a story that will cross the centuries. And so, beneath the sun's last gleam, the night takes hold of the wall. The men ready themselves for their vigil. The wind rises from the north, and the world seems to hold its breath. Somewhere on the horizon, a flame sparks atop another tower, and history begins to move. While the torches crackle and the soldiers take their positions, the night grows denser, and the wall becomes a silent stage where every shadow has a purpose. The vigil has only just begun. Darkness has already settled completely over the hills. The last embers of twilight fade on the horizon, and the great wall, lit by scattered torches, looks like a river of fire hung between the mountains. High on a tower, a gong resounds with gravity. It is the signal for the change of guard. The day's sentries hand over their posts to the guardians of the night. It is a ritual change, repeated so often it has taken on the rhythm of a sacred gesture. The soldiers' shadows cut against the fire's glow, and the murmur of voices and footsteps blends with the song of the wind, creating a hum that feels like a collective breath. Hardened leather armor, stitched with metal plates, gleams briefly in the torchlight. The men adjust bronze helmets and coarse wool capes that will shield them from the cold rolling down from the north. Their spears and bows rest beside the parapet, and each one knows exactly which point he must watch. There is no room for carelessness. On a clear night like this, the echo of a horse or a drumbeat could be heard for kilometers. The frontier is immense, and they are the Empire's eyes, the only ones able to spot danger before it is too late. The post's captain, a veteran with a weathered face and stern gaze, slowly walks the line of the guard. In his hand, he holds a paper lantern that sways with the wind. He inspects, one by one, the men under his command, ensuring each torch has oil, each bow is taut and the arrows ready. His name is Zhao Wen, and though he is not of the nobility, he has served 3 governors and survived more winters than he can count. He knows the true enemy does not always come from the north. Sometimes it is fatigue, carelessness, the routine that lulls the senses. That is why he demands absolute discipline, even on quiet nights like this. As he passes, the soldiers straighten and tap the ground with the butt of their spears in respect. Zhao Wen barely nods. He is not a man of words. Sometimes, gazing into the desert's emptiness, he remembers comrades lost years ago during a surprise attack on another stretch of the wall. That time the alarm came late and the enemy advanced swiftly, using the fog. Since then, every guard under his command knows the towers must keep in touch, even when no danger seems near. A fire lit in time can save thousands. The wind blows harder, lifting small clouds of sand that strike the sentries' faces. One of them, a young man named Han Rui, has been on the wall barely 3 months. His hands tremble slightly as he holds the torch. It is not fear, not entirely. It is that blend of respect and vulnerability one feels before immensity. Han Rui has never seen the sea, but he senses this dark horizon resembles it. On clear nights when the moon lights the hills, he can make out the undulating line of the wall receding until it is lost in the haze. "How far does it go?" he once asked the captain. Zhao Wen answered without looking. "As far as the Empire needs to sleep in peace." In the camps at the foot of the wall, the workers' bonfires go out one by one. Above, only the guardians remain, isolated among the towers. Communications depend on fire, smoke, and horn calls. Each tower has its fire watch, a group of 3 men in charge of keeping torches ready for the signal. The technique is simple and yet marvelous. A few minutes suffice for an alert to cross hundreds of kilometers, passing from tower to tower like a living spark that runs through the night. As we let our eyes travel along the endless line of walls and towers, it is impossible not to think of the magnitude of this work. Under orders from the Emperor Qin Shi Huang, hundreds of thousands of laborers were mobilized from the country's far edges. Peasants, prisoners, artisans, even scholars fallen into disgrace. Ancient records speak of entire years of unbroken labor, of roads turned into caravans of stone and wood. And although the official purpose was defense, many historians believe the wall was also a way to unify the people under a common effort, a physical reminder of the emperor's central power. Sometimes during his rounds, Zhao Wen contemplates the stars and wonders if anyone at the court in Xianyang, hundreds of kilometers to the south, remembers that they exist, they who guard the limit. Perhaps not. But in his heart he knows that without their vigil, the empire would sleep undefended, vulnerable to the riders of the north. He seeks no glory, only duty done. The young Han Rui, by contrast, still dreams of returning to his village. He keeps in his pouch a shard of pottery with his mother's name written in charcoal. When the wind blows hard and the cold bites to the bone, he grips it in his hand and promises himself to survive. Such are the nights on the wall, long, cold, and filled with thoughts only the darkness hears. At midnight, the silence becomes nearly absolute. The torch flames flicker, casting shadows that lengthen like dancing figures. In the nearest tower, a guard gently strikes a bell to mark the hour. The sound spreads like a metallic sigh along the stone walls, reminding all that time goes on, though the night seems eternal. Now imagine walking among those men, hearing whispers in an ancient tongue, feeling the weight of the cold air and the faint tremor of the stones beneath your feet. Every tower, every crack, every lit lantern seems to keep a story. In the wall's silence, one senses the echoes of the past and the promise of dawn. It is a scene suspended between wakefulness and sleep. At some point, a sentry high on the tower lifts his gaze. Something gleams far off, on the line of the horizon. Perhaps it is the moon's reflection on a rock, or the fire of another tower kindling its signal. No one knows for sure. Zhao Wen orders vigilance, but no alarm. The men tense. The shadows grow still. For an instant, time seems frozen. Then the glow vanishes, and the night regains its calm. Routine imposes itself again. Some guards change position, others check their weapons, and the life of the wall continues with that ancient serenity only places accustomed to danger possess. Above, the sky is so clear the stars seem within arm's reach. The Milky Way unfurls like a road of white dust crossing the firmament. Perhaps the men of the wall look at it with the same mix of wonder and weariness with which we look at them today. And though they do not know it, in that instant they are leaving an invisible mark. The memory of their vigil will be etched forever in the history of humankind. Every breath, every spear tap, every torch's glint forms part of a single nocturne that resounds over the mountains. The guardians of the wall are not epic heroes, nor legendary warriors. They are anonymous men, sustained by discipline and duty, lit like human beacons along the frontier. And in that sum of silences, the Empire finds its rest. Very soon the flames will speak again, and the wind will carry a message that will run through the whole night. But for now, the wall breathes in calm, waiting. And within its stones, the day's echoes. The wind has changed direction. It now blows from the west, bringing with it a different scent, a blend of ash and damp earth, as if the air itself remembered the years of effort needed to raise this wall. The guardians remain silent, but their minds travel far, back to the days when the stones were still dust and the horizon throbbed with the noise of hammers. On nights like this, when the calm is so deep one can almost hear the mountain's heartbeat, the men allow themselves to speak softly, to share stories only the darkness hears. A young sentry, Han Rui, breaks the silence. He asks if it is true what they say, that beneath the wall's slabs rest the bodies of laborers who died during construction. Zhao Wen, the captain, does not answer at once. He looks northward, where the wall is lost in the black, and his face is briefly lit by the fire's glow. At last he nods. "Yes," he says, in a voice that seems to come from very far away. "But their dreams are there inside as well." That phrase opens a river of memories. The older soldiers begin to tell what they heard from their fathers, or from the old Imperial engineers. Tales of endless caravans, of men in chains, of hills dismantled stone by stone to feed the wall. They say that when Emperor Qin Shi Huang ordered its building, he did not do so out of whim, but out of fear. He feared the enemies of the North as much as the ghosts of the past, the disunion that had torn China for centuries. He wanted a barrier to protect his dream of eternity. And so, under imperial command, a colossal enterprise began. From the newly conquered realms came peasants, prisoners, soldiers, and even scholars condemned for daring to question the emperor. The oldest texts speak of hundreds of thousands of men and women driven north, working without rest under the scorching sun and the slicing cold. Many died of exhaustion, hunger, or disease, and their bodies, nameless and tombless, were buried within the wall's layers. Others, more fortunate, survived long enough to see the wall grow a little more each day, advancing like a river of stone that devoured mountains and valleys. The labor was unceasing. By day, the air vibrated with the sound of chisels striking rock. By night, torches lit the coming and going of earth carts. The wall was not built from a single material, but from what the land offered in each region. In the mountains, stone and granite. On the plains, rammed earth mixed with lime, rice husks, and sap. Each stretch had its character, its texture, its color. Seen from the air, if anyone then could have seen it, it would have looked like an immense mosaic of intertwined materials and souls. Among the soldiers circulates the story of a worker named Meng Jiangnu, whose wife traveled thousands of kilometers to find him, only to learn he had died on the job. Weeping before the wall, her tears, so the legend says, were so sincere they brought down an entire section, revealing her beloved's bones. The sentries tell this story in low voices, not only out of superstition, but because deep down they know it is not just a legend. It is the human echo hidden under every brick. Han Rui listens intently. He finds it hard to picture that past. Fields covered with workers, engineers shouting orders, drums marking the cadence of the labor. Yet something in the night silence makes him feel it is all still there, invisible but present. Perhaps it is the wind, which runs through the wall's crevices and sounds as if thousands of voices spoke at once. Perhaps it is the stones themselves, which keep the memory of every blow, of every breath. Captain Zhao Wen lights an oil lamp and sits by the parapet. "When I was young," he says, "I worked on rebuilding a stretch in the east. We were hundreds of men dragging carts of earth and stone. There was no rest and no shade. But for every 10 who fell, 20 more arrived to replace them. They said the emperor wanted the wall to last 10,000 generations. I thought it would last only until the wind erased it. But look at it." And he lifts his gaze toward the stone serpent curving on the horizon. It is still there, as if it breathed. There is a moment of silence. Only the fire's crackle and the hum of wind striking armor are heard. Then another guard, older, adds, "They say the gods helped the emperor, sending dragons to guide the wall's path. Others say it was the emperor who sought to imitate dragons, building something as long and sinuous as they are." Zhao Wen smiles faintly. "Perhaps," he replies, "but dragons do not sweat, nor bleed, nor bury their comrades in the earth. This wall is the work of men, and that makes it even more powerful. As the men speak, the fire casts on the stones the shadows of their bodies, distorted, elongated, as if they were the ghosts of the laborers who once toiled here. The torches tremble, and the glow creates the illusion of movement. For an instant, it seems the wall is being built again before our eyes, layer by layer, stone by stone. The wind's murmur turns into the echo of hammers, and the whole night fills with an energy that does not belong to the present. Imagine being there, feeling beneath your feet the weight of history, sensing in the air the blend of weariness and hope that must have followed those first builders. No wall, however high or long, can be raised by brute strength alone. It also needs conviction, a purpose that justifies the sacrifice. And in that time, the purpose was clear: to protect the newborn civilization, to secure the unity of a country that had only just left behind centuries of internal wars. The wall was the symbol of the new order, the frontier that separated the emperor's world from the chaos outside. Yet not all shared that vision. Many saw in the wall a punishment more than a glory. For the northern nomads, it was a provocation. For the conscripted peasants, a sentence. And yet, even among them, there was a strange pride, that of knowing they were taking part in something that would outlast them. No one would remember their names, but their traces would be etched in every stretch of hardened earth. The fire starts to burn low. The men fall silent again. The conversation dissolves slowly, as if the wind dragged it toward the mountains. In the distance, a wolf howls, and its voice spreads over the stone, mingling with the wall's murmurs. Zhao Wen rises, takes his spear, and gives the order to continue the patrol. But as he walks, his gaze is lost in the undulating line of the horizon. He knows he is guarding more than a wall. He is guarding a memory that belongs to all. At the heart of the night, The wall seems not merely a fortification, but a border between the living and the dead, between the present and what has already become legend. The men who built it are not entirely absent. They still breathe, turned into stone, into echo, into silence. And so, when the wind blows again from the north, the guardians lift their eyes and think they hear something beyond the dark. A sound, faint but persistent, that could be the desert's roar, or perhaps the voices of the past that still keep watch over the wall. The fire flickers once more, and a spark rises to the sky before vanishing into the immensity. On the next tower, a glow ignites. The men watch it in silence, not yet knowing if it is a signal or the wind's whim. The fire on the farthest tower dies slowly, leaving a thread of smoke that fades into the starry sky. Silence returns to reign over the wall, a silence so vast it seems to hold within itself all the sounds of the world. From high above, the horizon expands like an ocean of shadows. To the north, beyond the hills, stretches the Gobi Desert, an immense and hostile land as ancient as the wind itself. There are no trees or villages, merely a line of dunes and mountains that merge with the night. For the men of the wall, that desert is not just a landscape. It is a living, unfathomable presence that watches and waits. Captain Zhao Wen stops by the parapet. Holding the torch the wind threatens to snuff out. His eyes sweep the darkness with care. He knows that horizon as if it were an adversary. He has spent too many nights giving shape to silence, a shadow that moves, a glint in the sand, a silhouette that does not belong to the wind. Behind every stone and every hill a mounted enemy could hide. The Xiongnu, the nomadic tribes of the north, need neither roads nor walls. They move with the desert's instinct, invisible until the moment of attack. And though this night seems calm, no soldier on the wall allows himself to trust it. The torch crackles. The glow lights the tense expressions of the sentries. Some hold their bows, others peer at the horizon from the watchtowers. In the air there is a blend of expectation and reverence. All know the wall would not exist without that invisible enemy. The Xiongnu are the reason for their vigil, the motive for their sacrifice. For generations, the northern peoples have crossed the borders to raid Chinese villages, bearing horses, fire, and the certainty that the world beyond the wall has no master. The wind rises, driving a fine dust that clings to skin and armor. The cold sinks into the bones, but the men remain motionless. The desert roars with a deep, steady sound like a far drum. In that vastness, time seems to dilate. The northern mountains, barely visible under the moon, blend with dark clouds. Zhao Wen remembers the tales he heard when young, as old officers described the enemy riders. They said their horses were swifter than the wind, that they could loose 3 arrows before a Chinese soldier drew his bowstring, and that in their faces there was no fear, only the certainty that no wall can pen in the desert. Around him, soldiers murmur prayers to the protective spirits. In ancient Chinese thought, the north was the realm of the black warrior, symbol of winter, darkness, and danger. Each night, the men leave small offerings of rice or tea on the walls, begging that spirit to turn aside attack, to keep the enemy asleep. It is a humble ritual, but heavy with meaning. The wall does not only divide lands, it separates order from chaos, light from shadow, man from myth. Imagine for a moment you are there, standing upon the cold stones, feeling the wind strike your face, hearing that immense whisper that seems to come from another age. At your feet, the wall curves like a solid river. Far off, the dark is so deep it seems to devour the sky. No animal sounds, no human voices. Only the hiss of air slipping through the wall's cracks, making a murmur that could be mistaken for breathing. It is easy to see why the ancients thought the desert had a life of its own. Zhao Wen looks about him. The torches flicker, the soldiers' helmets catch golden flashes. To one side, Han Rui tries to hold his gaze steady, though his pupils tremble with the fire's gleam. The young man has never seen the enemy. He knows only the rumors, sudden attacks, razed villages, lost caravans. Yet tonight he understands that the true adversary is fear. Uncertainty is as heavy as the iron of his spear. In the main tower, the signal keeper checks the oil bowls. If the enemy appeared, he would kindle the fire without hesitation, and that spark would travel from tower to tower until it reached the farthest fortresses. In under an hour, the message could reach Xianyang, where the emperor's generals plan the defense of the north. It is a system as efficient as it is fragile. It depends on men who cannot sleep, on eyes that do not blink. The wall is only as strong as the vigilance of those who guard it. At midnight, a cloud veils the moon. Everything becomes darker, more uncertain. The wind blows hard, tearing sparks from the torches. Shadows writhe upon the walls. Han Rui thinks he sees movement in the distance, a blot that changes shape. He leans, narrows his eyes. "Did you see it?" he whispers. Zhao Wen does not answer. He watches a few seconds more and then shakes his head. "The desert plays with us," he says. "It is its way of reminding us it is alive." For centuries, the north was an indomitable frontier. Beyond the wall stretched a world the Chinese called Tianxiajiwai, what is outside the sky under which we live. It was a land of barbarians by the imperial view, but also a space of freedom and movement. The nomads needed no walls. Their strength was mobility, their shelter distance. While the empire raised walls, they raised tents. While the Chinese tended fields, they followed the herds. Two civilizations, two ways of understanding life, separated by a line of stone. Zhao Wen, who has seen many men die on this frontier, knows it well. "We do not fight only against the riders," he says. "We fight against the wind that feeds them." It is a simple phrase, but it holds a deep truth. The wall is not a barrier against men, but against the uncontrollable, against nature itself. The night goes on. The stars reappear among the clouds, and the Milky Way cuts the sky like a luminous wound. The soldiers breathe easier. The danger, at least for now, seems to have passed. But no one relaxes completely. On the wall, calm is only another form of waiting. The hours stretch. The men move little, keeping warmth in their capes. The stone beneath their feet grows so cold it seems to drink their strength. Han Rui dares to break the silence. "Captain, do you think someday this wall will have no enemies?" Zhao Wen looks at him with an expression that blends weariness and tenderness. "No wall lives without someone on the other side," he replies. "If that happened, the wall would die as well." The wind blows again, gentler this time. In the distance, a fox crosses the dunes, its silhouette cut against the sand's faint gleam. For a moment, the men forget fear. The night feels more human, closer. The wall, silent, rises behind them like a sleeping giant that breathes slowly. Somewhere on the horizon, something changes. A tiny glow peeks through the black. A spark. A flame. A signal. The sentries straighten, tense. No one knows if it is enemy fire or a friendly tower deciding to speak. But all understand it at the same time. The calm has ended. The captain orders the torches prepared. Hands move quickly. Flames rise, smoke begins to climb, and the entire wall readies to answer. In the distance, the second tower repeats the signal, then a third and a fourth. A line of fire runs along the horizon, lighting the night with its tongue of light. And as the men line up, watching the message travel from hill to hill, Zhao Wen understands that the wall, more than stone or fire, is an eternal conversation between the living and the absent, between fear and hope. The wind shifts again, and in the darkness the sky seems to burn. The silence that reigned over the wall is shattered by the sudden roar of a flame. On the tower closest to the horizon, a torch rises to the sky like a tongue of light. For an instant, the men stand motionless, watching how the fire writhes in the dark, fed by oil and wind. Then, almost at once, Captain Zhao Wen gives the order. "Light the towers!" he shouts, and his voice blends with the burst of fire as it spreads. In a matter of seconds, the shadows brighten. The whole wall seems to awaken. The young Han Rui runs to the main brazier and throws in a handful of dried herbs that turn the smoke a bluish gray. That smoke is no accident. It is composed with precision, following secret formulas of the Imperial engineers, designed to raise columns visible for kilometers. Within minutes, another, farther tower answers with a flame, then another, then one more. And so, like a living chain, the wall begins to speak. The men watch the spectacle in silence, with a mix of awe and fear. From their tower, they can see how the fires kindle one after another, spreading like an incandescent river among the mountains. The signals travel east and west, toward regions they have never seen, toward commanders they may never know. It is the Empire's language, fire for nights, smoke for days. No word, no messenger could move so fast. Zhao Wen watches the glow reflected on his men's faces. No one yet knows the reason for the alarm. It could be an attack, an enemy patrol sighted in the distance, or simply a routine test ordered from the main garrison. But that does not matter. What matters is that the system works, that the chain is alive. In times like these, fire is both weapon and message, a symbol that the frontier does not sleep. The captain turns to Han Rui. "Do you know what you're seeing, boy?" he asks gravely. Han Rui hesitates before replying. "The wall. Speaking, sir." Zhao Wen nods, and his eyes shine with a spark of pride. "Exactly. This is the Emperor's voice. He speaks through us, and we through the fire." In ancient China's culture, fire held sacred value. It was one of the 5 fundamental elements, a symbol of order and vigilance. On the wall's towers, it was treated with an almost religious respect. The signals were not mere flames. They were prayers of smoke lifted to the sky, messages of power, warnings, promises. Every guard tasked with keeping them knew that lighting a torch without cause or delaying a signal could be punished by death. Precision was a matter of life and death, not only for them, but for thousands of villagers who trusted that network of burning eyes. The wind blows harder, the flames roar, the men half close their eyes against the glare. From above, the spectacle is overwhelming. Imagine the scene. A chain of mountains lit by hundreds of fires, snaking along the horizon, setting the sky alight as if the earth itself breathed light. In that moment, the wall ceases to be stone and becomes a living creature, a dragon of fire that runs along the north, warning the Empire of its own existence. Zhao Wen remembers what the Signal Corps instructors told him, that in times of calm, the fires were a way to keep discipline, an exercise in collective memory. But in times of war, each flame could mean the start of a campaign, the warning of an invasion, or the order to mobilize whole armies. A single spark sufficed to rouse thousands of men. It was a system so perfect that the enemies feared it as much as the soldiers revered it. Han Rui watches the sky in fascination. The smoke columns intertwine with the stars, tracing shapes that look like new constellations. For a moment, he imagines those fires are not signals, but guardians. Each flame a life, each smoke a sigh. It seems as if the wall were breathing, he murmurs. Zhao Wen looks at him and nods slowly. And when it breathes, The Empire feels its pulse, he replies. In the distance, drums begin to resound. They are not war drums, but those of the Imperial Code. Measured, repeated beats, confirming receipt of the message. Each sound travels on the wind, bouncing off the mountains. It is an ancient, wordless tongue, understood only by those who have devoted their lives to it. 2 slow beats, 1 quick, 2 more. Confirmation signal. The men exhale in relief. There is no attack. The alert has been a communication test, ordered by the Jayuguan garrison many leagues to the west. But relief does not erase the emotion. Knowing that a fire lit here can speak to another beyond the mountains is to feel they are part of something immense, an invisible web that keeps the Empire bound together. The soldiers return to their posts, but the image of the burning towers remains etched in their minds. The smoke, however, does not dissipate at once. It rises in spirals that mingle with the starry sky, creating a gray haze that floats over the hills. The moon cuts through it as if it were a veil. It is a hypnotic, almost mystical spectacle. In Taoist thought, smoke represents the passage between the earthly and the spiritual world. What rises is released. What ascends is purified. Perhaps without knowing it, the men of the wall take part in a ritual that transcends the military. Each night they light fire. They also offer a message to the sky. We are here. We remain awake. As the flames die down, the air fills with the smell of burnt oil and ash. The soldiers breathe deep, tasting the metallic tang of smoke on the tongue. The fire leaves behind a different calm, a kind of emptiness only silence can fill. Han Rui, leaning on the railing, watches the line of towers fading into the distance. It is as if the wall had spoken a language we all understand, though no one taught it, he says softly. Zhao Wen does not answer, but his look confirms it. The night gradually rearranges itself. The stars recover their brightness. The fire wanes to embers that crackle faintly upon the stone. The danger has ebbed, but something has changed. The men feel a deeper bond with the wall, as if the same blood that feeds those towers ran within them. The desert, once immense and mute, now seems to listen. Imagine the scene from the sky. A luminous serpent crossing mountains, hills, frozen rivers. Each tower a burning heart, each guard a heartbeat. That vision sums up the spirit of an entire civilization, an empire that builds not only walls, but networks of communication, of thought, of purpose. For the wall, more than a barrier, is a thread that weaves together all who live under the same sky. The smoke begins to thin with the dawn wind. In the distance, the fires go out one by one, like eyes slowly closing after a long vigil. The men return to their posts. The night is silent again. But more than ash floats in the air. There remains the feeling of having witnessed an ancient language, a conversation between man and earth, between solitude and history. Zhao Wen lifts his gaze one last time before snuffing his torch. On the horizon, the final glow of the last tower fades. The captain smiles, barely perceptibly. He knows the wall never sleeps, even if its fires die. And as the embers cool, the sound of distant hoofbeats begins to mix with the wind, so subtle that at first it seems only an echo. The sound comes first as a murmur, a dull vibration that blends with the wind. But little by little it takes shape, grows clearer, more defined. The trot of a horse advancing through the shadows. The soldiers raise their heads. The tower's fire has waned, but the glow of the embers is enough to light the path climbing from the valley. Far off, a solitary figure is etched against the line of the horizon. The animal is caked with dust. Its rider, wrapped in a dark cloak, wears an oil lantern hanging from his belt. None of the guards speaks. On the wall, any nocturnal arrival is cause for caution. Captain Zhao Wen orders the lower gate opened. 2 men shove the heavy wooden bolts and the creak of the hinges thunders like a storm. The horse crosses the threshold with a snort and halts abruptly. Its back shines with sweat. Its legs are coated in mud and frost. The rider dismounts slowly. He is young, but his face is hardened by the road's fatigue and dust. Around his neck hangs a bronze imperial seal, a symbol that leaves no doubt. He is a messenger of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Zhao Wen steps forward, offers him a bowl of water and a questioning look. "Speak," he says firmly. The messenger nods, struggles for breath, and answers. "I bring orders from the Juyuan garrison. Riders of the north have been sighted beyond the Yellow River Pass. There will be no immediate attack, but the Emperor demands that all towers remain lit until further notice." A heavy silence settles on the tower. The men exchange glances. The wind howls between the battlements, and the torches, shaken by the draft, cast trembling shadows on tense faces. Zhao Wen takes the sealed message and reads it by lamplight. The wax bears the imperial dragon, and the parchment, written in the court scribe's unmistakable hand, conveys clear orders. Reinforce vigilance, double the guard, keep the fires visible all night. The messenger sinks onto a stone and drinks greedily. "I have ridden 3 days without stopping," he says between gasps. "From the capital to here, the wind did nothing but roar. There are rumors. They say the Emperor has had troubled dreams, visions of invasions and of shadows crossing the wall. That is why he wants the line of fire to stay alive. He believes that as long as the towers burn, the Empire will breathe easy." Zhao Wen is silent a few seconds. He thinks of the man all fear and revere, who unified the realms with iron and will, who ordered books burned and palaces razed that defy mountains. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. For many, a demigod. For others, a mortal trying to defy death itself. His obsession with control reaches even the desert's limits. Every stone of the wall, every fire lit, every guard at his post, all are part of his dream of eternity. The captain hands the message to his second and approaches the messenger. "What news from court?" he asks more gently. The young man smiles bitterly. "News that sound like fantasies," he replies. "They say the alchemists have promised the Emperor an elixir that will halt time's passage, that he seeks immortality while we seek not to die of cold. They also say he has ordered an army of clay soldiers, replicas of the living, to protect him in the other world." Zhao Wen listens in silence, showing no surprise. "The Emperor fears death," he murmurs, "but death already accompanies him in every stone of this wall." Fire crackles in the braziers. Han Rui comes closer, curious, with the innocence of one who has not yet known war. "Is the elixir real?" he asks. The messenger smiles, weary. "Who knows? Many things are said in the capital. Some believe the Emperor does not fear dying, but being forgotten. That is why he fills the world with works to remember him. Palaces, statues, walls. He wants his name to keep resounding like the wind over these stones, even when his body has faded." The talk breaks off when a gust of wind snuffs a torch. A soldier hurries to relight it. In the distance, the towers still burn, small embers in the dark. The messenger watches the spectacle in fascination. "I had never seen the wall at night," he says. "From the valley, it looks like a serpent of fire dividing the sky in two. It is beautiful and terrifying." Zhao Wen nods. "So is power," he replies. "Beautiful from afar, terrifying up close." The young messenger lifts his gaze to the firmament. Stars flicker between thin clouds. "Sometimes I wonder," he says in a near confession, "if the wall will ever stop growing." On every journey I make, I find a new stretch, a new tower, a new stone. It is as if the Empire were never satisfied. Zhao Wen barely smiles. A wall that stops growing is an empire beginning to fall. As long as there is fear, there will be new stones. The messenger's horse whinnies, uneasy. Its hooves strike the stone nervously. The wind has shifted, and with it comes a vague, indecipherable sound, perhaps the echo of something distant. The men tense. The captain raises his hand and orders silence. But after a few moments, the noise dissolves. There are no enemies, only the desert's breath. Even so, no one speaks again. On the wall, even calm weighs. Han Rui approaches the messenger and offers him a bowl of hot rice. The young man accepts gratefully, and as he eats, he studies the tired faces around him. "You are like shadows," he says softly. "Shadows, holding up the sun." Zhao Wen fixes him with a look. "We merely keep the fire burning. Others will decide whether it serves to light or to burn." The hours crawl by. The messenger, spent, settles by a wall and closes his eyes for a few seconds. The captain, instead, remains standing, keeping watch. He knows he must soon send a reply, a detailed report on the state of the stretch. But deep down, he understands his role is more symbolic than practical. No matter what he writes, the court seeks only confirmation that the wall still lives, that its will still extends beyond the world's confines. Dawn begins to hint on the horizon. A pale glow stains the rim of the sky. The messenger stretches and readies his horse. Before leaving, he hands Zhao Wen a bamboo tablet bearing the imperial seal. "For you," he says, "proof that you fulfilled your duty." Zhao Wen accepts it, but his expression is grave. "Fulfilling duty does not always mean understanding it," he replies. The messenger smiles, mounts his horse, and rides off at a gallop. His silhouette recedes into the mist, blurring until it disappears. The men follow him with their eyes, in silence. The captain lingers a moment more at the parapet, watching the point where the rider vanished. Then he draws a deep breath and orders the torches, left lit since the night before, to be extinguished. The wall cools slowly, covering itself in the gray light of morning. The fire no longer burns, but the smoke rising from the embers seems to write in the air the promise of the day beginning. Zhao Wen lays a hand on the rough stone. Men come and go, he thinks, but the wall remains. The wind blows from the north, bearing the scent of morning and the distant murmur of waking voices. In the towers, the sentries begin to relieve one another, and the wall, for an instant, seems to rest. The captain lets his gaze fall to the camp, where a group of soldiers lights a fresh fire to warm the tea. The night has ended, but the day belongs to no one yet. The first light gleams on the spears, and the tea's steam rises in thin spirals. All returns to calm, though a different stillness, more human, warmer, begins to settle over the stone. And in that stillness, the wall breathes again, as if day's arrival brought with it a truce no one dares to break. Dawn lingers behind a bluish haze that veils the horizon. Night has not entirely departed, but the tension that hung in the air begins to thin, as if the wind carried off the last scraps of fear. On the main tower, the torches go out one by one, leaving behind a dense scent of burnt oil. The fire that moments ago spoke with a voice of alarm has now become a silent companion. The men, exhausted after the long vigil, seek shelter beside the braziers, where the heat still throbs with life. Captain Zhao Wen descends the stone steps slowly. His face, lit by the embers, shows an ancient weariness, not born of a single sleepless night, but of long years guarding the world's edge. In the inner yard, the soldiers have formed a small circle. There are no orders, No protocols, no ranks. Only the shared relief of those who know that, at least for now, calm prevails. One of them hands out bowls of hot rice, while another heats water to brew tea. Steam rises in fine columns, mingling with the mist that blankets the hills. Han Rui sits by the fire. At his side, a comrade plays a bamboo flute with numbed fingers. The notes, soft and slightly mournful, slip among the stones, filling the air with a serenity that seems foreign to war. It is a simple melody, a village song, learned long before the boy knew what the wall was. The sound recalls the murmur of rivers, the echo of markets, the voices of mothers who sing to call sleep. In that instant, the men cease to be soldiers. They become sons, fathers, brothers, beings of flesh and memory. Zhao Wen listens from a distance. He does not interrupt. He knows the worth of such moments, so brief and so necessary. In his youth, when he still believed war had meaning, he scorned soldiers' songs. Now, instead, he understands they are a form of resistance. Music, amid the desert's hostile silence, is a reminder of humanity. A different fire that does not consume, but gives warmth. The tea begins to boil, and its aroma spreads through the tower. It is northern green tea, bitter and rough, brought from far provinces. The men drink slowly, blowing on the rims of metal cups. None speaks much. There is no need. Words are superfluous when life itself seems suspended between smoke and stone. The night has been long, but not endless. And while the fire crackles, one would say the whole wall listens, attentive to its guardian's breathing. Han Rui stares into the embers, lost in thought. Each leaping spark recalls something of his former life. The forge where his father worked, the smell of toasted rice, the lights of the mid-autumn festival. He thinks of his village, of the fields that at this hour must already be waking, of the women drawing water from the well, of the children running after dogs. Thousands of kilometers away, life goes on, indifferent to walls and empires. That idea comforts and wounds him at once. The young man breaks the silence. "Captain," he says softly, "have you ever wished to leave the wall?" Zhao Wen lifts his eyes from the fire. For an instant it seems he has not heard. Then he smiles, tired. "The wall is not a place one leaves," he replies. "It is a place one belongs to. Those who try to go far discover they carry it with them." Han Rui nods slowly. He does not know whether the captain speaks of duty or of doom, perhaps of both. The wind blows and makes the flames dance. The flute falls silent. One of the soldiers, a middle-aged man with scarred hands, begins to tell a story. He speaks of the first days of construction, when thousands of laborers worked shoulder to shoulder, and how the overseers said that every time a stone was set, a spirit had to bless it so it would withstand time. "That is why," the man says, "the wall is alive. It has within it the soul of those who raised it." The others listen in silence, fascinated. The idea does not seem strange. After all, when the wind blows through the cracks, it seems the wall speaks in a tongue only it understands. Zhao Wen adds, almost in a whisper, "Each night, when I pass my hand over the stone, I feel it beat. Perhaps it is the day's heat echo, or maybe something more. But I swear the wall has a pulse. No one laughs. No one doubts. In the heart of the frontier, where reality and myth mingle, impossible things find their place." The tea is finished. Some men lean back against the stone, letting the fire's warmth caress their faces. Others carve small figures from bits of wood, a simple pastime that keeps hands busy. One shapes a small dragon, a symbol of protection. Another, a flower. Small gestures to remind themselves that life still exists, even where war lurks. The captain rises and walks to the wall's edge. From there, he contemplates the horizon. The haze lifts slowly, revealing mountains in blue and gray tones. All seems still, but beneath that quiet, there is constant motion. The world's breathing. Zhao Wen thinks of the messenger who left before dawn, of his tired horse and dust-filled gaze. He thinks of the emperor, as distant as a star, and of the men watching stretches of wall that will never meet. All bound by the same stone, by the same flame. He turns and looks at his men. Some already sleep, others murmur in their dreams. For a moment, he wonders how many generations will pass before someone looks upon this same landscape again. Perhaps centuries hence, when the emperor's and his generals' names have faded, other travelers will walk these stones and feel the same, the weight of time and the beauty of perseverance. The sun, timid, begins to peek between the mountains. Its light flashes on the armor, striking golden sparks. The wall, which through the night was shadow and fire, now becomes a ribbon of gold winding over the earth. In the air, the brazier's smoke rises, drawing spirals that blend with the morning mist. The wind's sound changes. It is no longer a lament, but a quiet sigh. Han Rui opens his eyes and sees the captain standing still before the dawn. For the first time, he understands that this wall not only divides worlds, but also joins them. Silence and song, stone and heart. Each dawn upon the wall reminds that even in the hardest places, life insists on blooming. The fire dies slowly. The men begin to rise, adjusting their cloaks. Soon they will return to their posts. The wall resumes its routine, that silent choreography of vigilance and patience that sustains the empire from the shadows. Zhao Wen wipes his brow and breathes deep. The air smells of smoke, of tea, of dawn. The day is just beginning, and with it, a new stretch of eternity unfolds before them. And in that moment, suspended between sleep and wakefulness, the wall seems to keep a secret only the night knows, and that the day, little by little, will begin to reveal. The sun has already crossed its highest point and slowly descends toward the horizon, bathing the wall in golden light that seems to set the stones ablaze. In the hours of daylight, the wall breathes a different silence, broader, more serene. The men have spent the day repairing cracks, checking bowstrings, cleaning armor. In the camps at the tower's foot, the smell of toasted rice and burning wood has filled the air. Weariness has mingled with relief. No one knows what the next night will bring, but for now, peace feels like a gift best not questioned too much. As the afternoon dissolves, the light shifts in tone. The sky becomes a copper mirror, and the mountains are dyed a deep violet. The north wind returns, colder, sharper, and bears the mineral scent of stone. Zhao Wen climbs again to the main tower. His steps ring hollow on the steps. Above, Han Rui already awaits him, scanning the horizon with narrowed eyes. "The sky is clear tonight, Captain," the youth says. Zhao Wen nods. "That means the gods will be able to see us." At the tower's height, the air is purer, livelier. The wall snakes away into the distance, lost in a sea of hills that look like petrified waves. When the sun finally sets, the first stars begin to sprout in the firmament. Timid at first, then countless. Night returns, and with it, that feeling that time stretches, that the centuries touch one another under the same light. The torches kindle one by one, speckling the darkness with points of fire. But this time, the mood is different. There is no alarm nor urgency, only a quiet vigil, a silent, attention. Hanrui lifts his gaze and points north. "Do you see that?" he says with restrained excitement. "The azure dragon. My mother told me of him when I was a child. She said that when the dragon appeared in the sky, it meant the ancestors' souls were awake, watching the living Zhao Wen follows his finger. There among the constellations, a sinuous figure seems to move slowly, as if breathing. The ancient Chinese astronomers called that swath of stars the Qinglong, the azure dragon of the east, guardian of spring, symbol of renewal and strength. The captain keeps silent for a few seconds, contemplating. "In my first years here," he says at last, "I thought the dragon an invention of poets. But after so many nights under this sky, I have learned to recognize it. It is curious. While the wall defends the earth, the dragon guards the sky. Perhaps that is why they resemble each other so much. Both are endless, both move slowly, and neither ever quite grows old." The wind rises, stroking the torches. The fire's glow seems to dance to the rhythm of the stars. The men on watch lift their eyes with reverence. In the Empire's culture, the dragon is more than a mythical creature. It is the personification of celestial power, the link between gods and men. It is said emperors descend from its line, and that each dynasty is born beneath the auspice of a star in its body. For the soldiers, to look upon the dragon at night is to remember their sacrifice has meaning, that they are part of something that transcends them. Zhao Wen rests a hand on the parapet's cold stone. "People in the capital believe we watch the borders," he says softly. "But in truth, we watch the sky. What happens up there is reflected down here." Han Rui smiles. "Then we are guardians of the dragon." The captain nods, though his gesture holds a touch of melancholy. "Guardians of what we do not wholly understand." Hours advance, and the firmament grows denser. The stars form luminous rivers crossing from end to end, recalling the yellow river that winds below, hidden by distance. The court's sages insist that sky and earth mirror each other, and that the wall itself was built following the course of the constellations. Each tower, each curve, each change of direction corresponds, according to Imperial astronomers, to a point in the firmament. Thus the wall not only shields the Empire, it balances it with the cosmos. Han Rui, his bow resting on his knees, asks, "Do you think the dragon sees us?" Zhao Wen answers without taking his eyes from the sky. "He sees us, but not as you think. He does not look at men, but at the fire that keeps them awake. As long as there is fire, the dragon will recognize its reflection." A reverent silence settles between them. The wind ceases, and for a moment, the air seems still. The flames scarcely move, and the world's sound dims until it becomes a murmur. Far off, an owl hoots, marking the hour. In that instant, everything seems connected. The stars, the wall, the men, the dragons, time. As if each thing existed only to uphold the other. The young soldier closes his eyes for a few seconds and listens. He can hear the faint crackle of embers, the brush of wind on stone, the distant tap of water against the valley. All sounds like an immense, ancient song. When he opens them again, the dragon is still there, unmoving, his body of light stretched over the north. "Captain," he says, "do you think we too will shine someday, like those stars?" Zhao Wen looks at him tenderly. "Only if we learn to burn without destroying ourselves." On the neighboring towers, the other guards watch the sky as well. Some pray in silence, others simply let themselves be wrapped in calm. Thoughts grow slow, floating. No one speaks of the emperor, nor the enemy, nor of duty. All that seems too small before the firmament's immensity. The only real thing in that instant is the fire that unites them and the dragon that watches them. A current of cold air sweeps the wall. The torches flicker, and the smoke rises in spirals that vanish among the stars. Zhao Wen shivers. He does not know whether it is the cold or something more. Perhaps the feeling of being watched not by men, but by time. Above, the dragon seems to move. His eyes, two bright stars in the constellation, sparkle with a new intensity. For an instant, he seems to bow his head toward the earth, as if in greeting. Han Rui notices it too and straightens. Neither speaks a word. Silence grows taut again. The dragon, up there, seems to wake anew, and the wall, once more, prepares to listen. The night advances with the slowness of a heavy dream, and the glow of the celestial dragon dissolves on the horizon. Upon the wall, the torches begin to burn out, leaving behind a faint radiance, as if the stones themselves had learned to shine. Silence comes to rule all once more. But it is not an empty silence. It is a silence charged with history, with voices that were never fully stilled. Han Rui, leaning on the parapet, contemplates the endless line of the wall and wonders how many generations have passed before his hands touched the same stones. The north wind, ever present, blows with a constant murmur, almost like an ancient sigh. Zhao Wen approaches and stands beside him for a moment, in silence. Both watch the mist rise from the valleys, veiling the feet of the wall. It is a thick mist that seems to carry fragments of the past, echoes of hammers, of shouts, of work songs. "You know, Han Rui," says the captain in a low voice, "there was a time when this was not a single wall, but many, small walls, raised by realms that feared one another as much as they feared the common enemy." Han Rui looks at him, intrigued. Zhao Wen continues, "Before Emperor Qin unified the lands under his command, China was divided. It was the time of the warring states, Zhao, Yan, Qin, Wei, Han, Chu, Qi. Each with its own walls, its armies, its ambitions, each trying to protect itself from the other and from the northern riders who always lurked. Some stretches were stone, others earth, others barely mounds reinforced with logs. They were small walls, fragments of fear scattered along the frontier. The youth listens in silence, trying to picture that ancient world. The idea of multiple walls, each with its own purpose, seems strange to him. "Then ours is a union of them all?" he asks. Zhao Wen nods. "That is what the emperor wanted. That the country, divided by centuries of war, be bound by a single line. Where before there were borders, he traced one wall, and with it he imposed a single name, a single voice." The wind blows harder, lifting dust and ash. The captain covers his face with his hand. "Sometimes I think," he says, "that the wall was not built only to stop the enemy, but to remind our own men what it means to belong to something larger than themselves. It is not a barrier, but a seam. It unites as much as it separates." The moon breaks through the clouds, bathing the stone in a milky sheen. From above, the wall seems to float over the landscape, immense, unmoving, eternal. Zhao Wen goes on, his voice carried by the wind. "There were kings who dreamed of unifying the lands, but only Qin Shi Huang achieved it. He did it with fire, iron, and will. He ordered the walls of the old realms torn down and their remains used to build a new one. He commanded that the best engineers be gathered, the most skilled strategists, and forced them to work together. In a single year, the frontier changed its face. The wall you see now was born." Han Rui listens, fascinated. He imagines thousands of laborers moving through the mountains, with whips and jars of water, mixing mud and stone under the sun. He imagines mule caravans carrying materials, drums beating the rhythm, imperial banners waving over the valleys. It must have been beautiful and terrible at once, he murmurs. Zhao Wen nods. It was. Greatness always has a price. They say more than 300,000 men died on the work. Some were buried within the walls they helped raise. That is why they say the wall is not only earth and stone, but also bones and memories. The young man lowers his gaze. His fingers trace the stone's rough surface, sensing cracks, imperfections, the marks of other times. Then, when the wind blows like this, he says, "Is it true you can hear their voices?" Zhao Wen smiles faintly. It depends on who listens. Some say it is only the wind, and some hear songs. I prefer to believe the wall remembers. It forgets nothing. For a moment, neither speaks. The night seems to hold its breath. Far off, a fox crosses the path and vanishes into the shadows. The brazier's fire flickers, casting long shadows over the stone. Han Rui breaks the silence. Do you think the wall will still be here when we are gone? Zhao Wen looks toward the horizon, thoughtful. Yes, he replies, but not as you see it now. Each era will add something. Each dynasty will repair it, alter it, forget it, and rediscover it. The wall is like a river. It changes shape, but never purpose. The captain walks a few steps away and stops before the signal tower. There, under the moonlight, the inscriptions carved in the stone seem to come alive. They are names, dates, fragments of poems that soldiers have left over the years. Words written with charcoal, with knives, with fire. Small acts of rebellion and love. Testimonies of those who passed there before them. Zhao Wen runs his fingers over one of the inscriptions. It reads, "If the wall falls silent, we will speak for it." The wind swirls and makes a flag's cords tremble. Han Rui, moved, asks, "Who would write such a thing?" Zhao Wen shrugs. "Perhaps someone who, like you, feared being forgotten." The wall keeps thousands of hidden names, thousands of stories with no record. Some were peasants forced to labor on it, others soldiers who never returned. And yet, in that shared anonymity, all found a form of permanence. The wall absorbed them, made them part of its body. Perhaps that is why, when one walks upon its stones, one feels one is stepping over sleeping souls. The sky begins to pale. The dragon of stars has faded completely, and the first light of dawn paints the horizon in gray tones. The soldiers begin to stir slowly, preparing for a new day of watch. But the air still holds something sacred, a calm that belongs neither to day nor night. Zhao Wen breathes deep and says, "When emperors fall and names are erased, the wall will still be here. And when no wall remains, its memory will still draw a line in the minds of men. No stone lasts forever, but stories do." Han Rui nods, eyes shining. "Then, is the wall a story?" he asks. Zhao Wen smiles. "It is the longest one man has ever told. And each generation writes one more sentence." Silence covers them again. On the horizon, the dawn's light filters through the clouds, lighting the distant stretches of the wall. The tower seemed to kindle with new fire. Everything begins anew, as if the earth were breathing again. The captain watches the first rays touch the mountains. Then he adjusts his cloak and prepares to go down. "Come on, Han Rui," he says. "The wall does not sleep, but we have earned it." Both descend slowly, while behind them the wall stretches infinite, bathed in the glow of a new day. And in that uncertain light, Between smoke and dawn, a distant sound rises. A creak, an echo, perhaps a portent, that makes the whole wall seem to hold its breath. Dawn has passed and the day has slipped by in a deceptive calm. The hours slid slowly, among minor repairs, rounds, and the echo of brief conversations lost in the wind. The men rested in turns, ate rice with legumes, and some, exhausted, fell asleep with their heads on their knees. But now, as the sun sets again and the wall sinks once more into darkness, the air feels different, denser, more attentive. Zhao Wen senses it at once. There is something in the silence he does not like. The wind has stopped completely, and the world seems suspended in a fragile balance, as if even the earth were waiting for something. From his tower, he watches the shadows spreading over the valley. The mountains to the north are barely a dark line, unmoving. But the captain knows that on the frontier, stillness is an illusion. The desert always watches before it attacks, his former commander had said. And that phrase, like a warning, returns now with full force. The night watch prepares. The torches are lit again, and the towers begin to communicate with routine signals. No emergency, no call for help. All seems in order. Yet the fire burns in a strange way. Its flames oscillate in opposite directions, as if breathing in air not their own. Zhao Wen patrols the wall with Han Rui and 2 other soldiers. Their steps ring hollow on the slabs. The stone, cold under their soles, seems to hold a dull vibration, a hidden pulse. Han Rui tries to break the silence with a joke, but his voice dies quickly. Something in the air forbids speaking aloud. Only the wind's rub between battlements is heard, the tap of metal on metal, and from time to time, the distant cry of an owl. The men advance cautiously, watching the hills fading into the half-light. Far off, a thick mist begins to lift, covering the valley with a translucent layer. "Too soon for mist," murmurs Zhao Wen. The air smells of damp and iron. Han Rui looks north and thinks he makes out movement among the shadows. An instant, a blink. Something dark, almost imperceptible, crawls among the dunes. The youth tenses and draws his bow. "Did you see it?" The captain does not answer at once. He sharpens his gaze, narrows his eyes. Nothing. Only the airs shimmer over the ground. "It may be an animal," he says at last, though there is a caution in his voice the others perceive. They keep moving. The torches cast golden flashes over the walls, which seem to breathe under the wavering light. Every shadow takes a different shape. Every sound, however faint, is amplified until it becomes unsettling. In the west tower, one of the lookouts waves his torch 3 times, the sign of mild alert. Not an emergency, but a warning. Zhao Wen raises his hand and answers with 2 slow motions, ordering him to hold position. The men halt. The haze now blankets half the valley. The silence becomes absolute. None dares to move. And then, they hear it. A faint, irregular sound. The crack of branches, the rub of metal. It does not come from the north, but from the east, from a blind spot among the hills. Han Rui tightens the bow and aims into the dark. The captain signals him to wait. The noise repeats, closer this time. Then suddenly, it stops. Seconds pass that feel like minutes. Zhao Wen holds his breath. The mist drifts slowly over the stones, covering everything. The men stand like statues. No one speaks. No one blinks. In the distance, a torch sputters and dies, leaving a gap of light. The captain's heart hammers. He knows any rash movement could unleash chaos. At last, a murmur breaks the silence. The whinny of a horse, brief, muffled. Han Rui steps forward. "Is it one of ours?" he whispers. Zhao Wen ignores him. He watches the dark as if to pierce it with his gaze. "Too quiet for a large group," he murmurs. "If they were enemies, they would have struck already. If they were animals, they would flee the fire." He thinks a few seconds more, then orders, "Light more torches." "I want light on the side towers." The men obey. The flames rise again, devouring the haze. The glow barely reveals the contours of the nearby hill. There is no movement, no figures, only smoke curling and the distant murmur of earth cooling with the night. Zhao Wen lowers the bow. "It may have been only the echo," he says, though his voice lacks conviction. The wind returns, soft but steady. It carries the smell of oil, ash, human sweat. Above, the clouds part and let through a band of moon that lights the wall with a silvery glow. The men breathe with relief, but silence, that old enemy, returns heavier than before. Han Rui, still on guard, breaks the tension. "Captain, has it ever happened to you that the wall seems to listen? As if it were waiting for something?" Zhao Wen smiles faintly. "It always waits. That is its nature. We are only its voice." They return to their posts. The towers remain lit all night, though the danger does not return. Some soldiers swear they saw lights moving among the hills. Others insist it was only a reflection of the fire. But none can deny the air has changed, thicker, older, as if something had crossed the border unseen. At midnight, Zhao Wen climbs again to the central tower. From there he contemplates the wall stretched like a sleeping serpent. The torches form an unbroken line of light that fades into the horizon. All seems calm, but the captain cannot shake the feeling that the wall has changed its pulse, as if it were breathing more slowly, more deeply. Perhaps it too is afraid, he thinks. Under his feet, the stone keeps the day's echo. In it are felt the footsteps, the voices, the stories the wall has devoured over centuries. Zhao Wen wonders if men will ever learn to truly listen to it. Perhaps, if they could, they would discover that walls also feel loneliness. Han Rui reaches him and stops by his side. Neither speaks. The silence between them is not awkward. It is part of the landscape. The youth watches the moon and says, "It is strange, Captain. Before I feared the dark. Now I fear when everything is too quiet." Zhao Wen glances at him. "You have learned quickly. Calm is danger's oldest disguise." The hours thin slowly. The guards remain alert, though weariness pushes them toward drowsiness. At some point in the night, the sound that had unsettled them returns, but this time it blends with the rumor of the wind. No one reacts. No one moves. Only the wall, eternal, seems to listen. When the first light of dawn peeks behind the mountains, the captain is still standing. His silhouette cuts the horizon, firm, unmoving, lance resting on the ground. The sun, timid, caresses the stones, and little by little, the cold retreats. The soldiers exhale, and with that breath, fear dissolves, if only for a moment. Zhao Wen closes his eyes and breathes deep. The wall, wrapped in newborn light, seems more human than ever. Shadows recede, and with them, suspicion. Perhaps the threat was never outside, but inside the men who fear it. The captain opens his eyes. Before him, the dawn begins to paint the world gold, and for the first time in many hours, the silence no longer weighs. It feels clean, like a promise just fulfilled. The cold retreats slowly, like a shadow conceding defeat before the light. The night has been long and thick, but at last dawn appears over the northern mountains, bathing the world in a pale glow. The wall, which until moments ago seemed a sleeping line among the mist, comes alive. The damp stones reflect the brightness with a trembling sheen, and the wind, brushing them, lets out a murmur that sounds like a sigh of relief. Captain Zhao Wen stands motionless, eyes fixed on the horizon. Weariness weighs on his shoulders, but his breathing is calm. He knows he has survived one more night, and that the wall has too. The soldiers begin to stretch, rubbing their hands to drive off the cold. Some yawn. Others gaze at the sky with that mix of awe and gratitude that appears only after fear. Han Rui, eyes half closed, watches the sun rise behind the mountains, an orange sphere that gilds the hills. The boy feels a strange emotion, something like hope. Dawn, he thinks, is the one certainty no emperor can control. The captain walks slowly along the wall, passing his hand over the stone still warm from the torch's fire. Every stretch, every crack, every mark of time is familiar to him. The wall is not just a defense, it is a silent companion, a presence that breathes beside them. Each day is a new beginning, he murmurs to himself. Yet inside, he knows what starts with light is no different from what the night left behind. The vigil has no end, it only changes form. Birds begin to sing, timid at first, then in chorus. Their sound breaks the monotony of silence. In the valleys, the mist dissolves little by little, revealing sleeping villages and fields covered in frost. From that height, the world seems clean, intact, as if nothing bad had ever happened. The men, leaning on their spears, watch in silence. For a few minutes, no one remembers war, or duty, or fear. Only the growing light, the returning warmth, the air smelling of earth and new life exist. Han Rui approaches Zhao Wen and offers a cup of hot tea. "It is the last of the day, Captain," he says with a smile. Zhao Wen accepts the bowl and drinks slowly, letting the steam moisten his face. The tea's bitter taste brings him back to reality, to the weight of years. "You know, boy," he says after a silence, "I have always believed dawn does not belong to men. It belongs to the wall. We only behold it." Han Rui studies him, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "That the wall does not sleep, but dreams," the captain replies. "And when the light arrives, those dreams become visible. Each stone remembers something, the days of construction, the voices of laborers, the steps of soldiers, the names of those who never returned. When the sun touches it, all those memories wake." The youth nods slowly. He understands, though not entirely. He knows the captain speaks of something larger than himself, of a truth that will not fit into words. He looks toward the horizon. The sun has climbed enough to tint the towers and battlements copper. From that distance, the wall looks like an endless road, a path that links sky and earth. Then, each day the wall is born again, says Han Rui. Zhao Wen barely smiles, and each night it dies again. The wind shifts. It blows from the south, warm and light, bearing the scent of far fields. It is a breeze that promises calm. The men use the moment to gather the remnants of the watch, spent torches, loose ropes, scattered utensils. The sound of metal, footsteps, and mingled voices fills the air with a familiar routine. Life on the wall is measured in cycles, in repetitions that, far from tedious, uphold the continuity of time. In the central tower, the lookouts descend one by one. The brazier's fire still smolders. Zhao Wen stops before it and throws in a dry branch. Sparks rise in a spiral, dancing for a few seconds before going out. He watches them closely, like one reading an old lesson. "That is what we are," he says softly. Brief flashes in a night far too long. Han Rui hears him and answers with a smile. But while the flame lasts, darkness does not win. Zhao Wen looks at him, surprised, and nods. I hope so, boy. I hope so. Far off, the first sounds of life returning to its course are heard. Goats bleating, hammers striking in the workshops, the shouts of herders crossing the valleys. All is reborn. The empire, from its capital to its most remote borders, wakes under the same sun. No one down there will know that during the night the wall breathed, that its men feared, waited, and endured. But that is the essence of duty, to remain unseen, to guard without claiming glory. The captain sits for a moment on the parapet's edge. Around him, the landscape opens in a display of color and light. From that height, the world seems eternal, and yet he knows nothing is. One day, he thinks, the wall will be covered with grass, the towers will be ruins, and the wind will blow over the remains as it now blows over us. But as long as there are men who look at dawn, the wall will live in them. Han Rui, who has stayed beside him, keeps silent. There is no need to say anything. Sometimes words are an obstacle to peace. He watches the dying fire and thinks of all the dawns to come, of the generations who will continue the watch, of the hands that will touch the same stones in 100 or 1,000 years. The sun keeps climbing, filling the sky with a clear blue. Shadows shorten. The cold vanishes completely. The men, now fully awake, begin to prepare breakfast: rice, pieces of hard bread, and a little salted meat. Laughter returns, soft, as if the night's fear had never existed. The wall, bathed in light, seems different, more human, more fragile, closer. Zhao Wen stands and walks the wall once more, stopping at each tower. He greets the lookouts with a nod, checks the weapons, watches the fire go out completely. He does it unhurriedly, with the ritual of one who understands every small gesture has value. When he finishes, he leans on the railing and lets the wind tousle his hair. Today, the land seems calm, he says under his breath. May it last, if only for a moment. Han Rui joins him, holding a cup of freshly poured tea. Both look toward the north, where the mist withdraws from the desert. Vastness envelops them. Neither speaks. The wall, witness to everything, keeps silence as well. The sun now shines with strength, and the wall, lit by its light, seems to return a radiance of its own, as if silently celebrating the arrival of a new day. And as the warmth begins to wake the air and the mountains take on a golden hue, a sense of peace settles over the men. They do not know how long it will last, but they understand that, in this moment, it is enough to be alive, to feel the kindly weight of the sun on their skin, to know the night is behind them. The wind blows, light, caressing the towers. The shadows disappear little by little, and in the luminous vastness of dawn, the wall seems to smile. Day rises slowly over the world's frontier. The mist dissolves like a veil that reveals bit by bit the wall's contours. The towers, bathed in light, look like stone guardians who have just opened their eyes. Far off, the valleys fill with life. Smoke from homes, the sound of wooden carts, the shouts of peasants starting their day. The wall, by contrast, does not move, but within its stillness, there is a strength that beats, a deep breath that seems to mark the empire's pulse. Zhao Wen walks the parapet in silence, accompanied only by the wind's murmur. He has passed the entire night awake, yet his steps are firm. He feels no fatigue, only a strange serenity, as if the wall had lent him its millennial calm for a moment. He observes the stones, the grooves carved by time. the cracks where light seeps through. Each one speaks to him in a language that needs no words. He knows those traces will remain when he is gone, as the mountains, the wind, and the horizon will remain. Han Rui follows a few paces behind, eyes full of wonder. "I had never seen the wall like this, Captain." "It seems different," he says, breaking the silence. Zhao Wen smiles without taking his eyes off the horizon. "It has not changed, boy. We are the ones who see it differently. Each dawn reveals it anew. It is the same wall that last night seemed a sleeping giant. Only now we look with the eyes of the living." The youth nods, pensive. The air carries a different scent, a mix of warm stone and fresh grass. In the distance, a group of relief soldiers advances along the valley path, their silhouettes cut against the light. They bring provisions and messages. Routine asserts itself once more, and with it, the eternal cycle of watch and wait. But that repetition, far from tedious, gives them meaning. In a world so vast, in an empire so immense, each stone set, each fire lit, each wakeful guard forms part of the same collective breath. Zhao Wen stops at the edge of the highest tower. From there, the view is overwhelming. The wall curves like a golden serpent that vanishes among mountains and plains. "You know, Han Rui," he says, "when I first came here, I thought the wall was only a border. Over the years, I understood it does not separate as much as it unites. It unites north with south, past with present, fear with hope." Han Rui listens closely. "And do you think it will be here forever?" he asks. Zhao Wen looks to the horizon, where the sun is lifting fully, and his expression softens. "Nothing lasts forever, not even stones. But as long as there is someone willing to remember them, they will go on. The wall is not only this line of stone. It is the memory of what we were capable of when we chose to endure together." The wind blows stronger, stirring the flags that wave atop the towers. The sound of the cloth is like a sigh, an ancient melody. Below, the soldiers resume their tasks, lighting small fires to warm breakfast. One of them plays a bamboo flute, and its music climbs the wall, mingling with the air's murmur. It is a simple melody, but in it resounds all they have lived: fear, waiting, faith. The captain sits for a moment upon a stone and closes his eyes. He listens. Not the music's sound, nor the wind's, but another, deeper. The wall's echo itself. At times it seems to him the wall has a voice, a grave, patient voice that crosses the centuries. It says no words, but its message is clear. It speaks of perseverance, of duty, of man's fragility and history's obstinacy. It speaks of eternity, not as promise, but as consequence. Han Rui sits beside him. "Have you ever wondered who was the first to place a stone here?" he asks with curiosity. Zhao Wen opens his eyes and smiles. "No, but I have thought of the last. Perhaps he has not been born yet, and perhaps when he is, he will not know he is continuing a work begun centuries ago. That is how time works. Each of us lays his stone, even if he never sees the wall finished." The youth lowers his gaze and touches the stone beneath his feet. He feels it warm, alive. "Then we are all part of the wall," he murmurs. The captain nods. "Exactly. Those who built it, those who defend it, those who will one day cross it, even those who will forget it. All. Because the wall does not, in the end, belong to an emperor or a dynasty. It belongs to man, to his desire to remain." The conversation is broken when a stronger gust blows from the north. The clouds move quickly, revealing a clear sky, a blue so pure it almost hurts. The towers cast long shadows over the valley, and the hills shine with golden light. It is a perfect instant, one of those that seem outside of time. Zhao Wen feels a pang of emotion, a quiet certainty. He has lived something that cannot be told in words, something that belongs to the very experience of being there. In the distance, the sound of drums marks the change of guard. The men line up, lances gleam in the sun, and routine's rhythm asserts itself again. But something has shifted, imperceptibly. Night has left its mark. Dawn has purified it. The wall breathes, and so do the men. Zhao Wen gives the horizon a last glance. He knows the cycle will continue tomorrow, and the day after, and the next. And that, when he is gone, others will take his place, see the same dawns, hear the same winds. That idea, far from saddening him, comforts him. There is a kind of eternity in repetition. Han Rui, youth still intact in his eyes, stretches and draws a deep breath. Captain, do you think we will ever be able to stop keeping watch? Zhao Wen looks at him a moment before replying. Perhaps the day man ceases to be afraid. But that day, Han Rui, the wall will no longer be needed. Both fall silent. The flute keeps sounding in the distance. The sun, in its ascent, reaches its highest point, and the shadows vanish entirely. The wall's stones shine intensely, as if they were mirrors reflecting not the sun's light, but that of all the dawns that ever existed upon them. Zhao Wen rises, adjusts his cloak, and looks one last time toward the northern desert. In his eyes there is weariness, but also a deep calm, that of one who has fulfilled his fate. Then he turns to Han Rui and says softly, "Come on, boy. It is time to go down. The day will not wait." They descend together down the stone stair. Below, the camp hums with life. The men eat, laugh, sharpen their swords, prepare oil reserves. The wall, meanwhile, remains still, vigilant, bathed in the noonday glow. And when the captain reaches the tower's foot, he pauses a moment, looks back, and smiles. Because he knows that, as long as a fire burns upon those stones, night will never quite win again. We have traveled together through a night on the Great Wall, listening to its ancient breath, the echo of those who raised it, and the calm the dawn leaves upon its stones. Perhaps looking toward the horizon, you too feel that silence that binds the centuries to the now. I would love to know what part of this journey has stayed with you. Good night.